The rise and fall of the Road Rash franchise. The epic year for video games, 1991, saw the release of a badass, ball-busting, violent, and fun-to-ride motorcycle racing game, Road Rash. When we say Road Rash, it triggers the memories of spending tons of happy hours in front of our gaming devices. 1991 was the year when some of the best games, along with the debut of the Super Nintendo, were released. But with the release of Final Fantasy II, Super Mario World, F-Zero, and perhaps Sega's best offering of the year for the Genesis, Sonic the Hedgehog, another franchise was born and took gamers by storm with its gameplay, bikes, speed, badass attitude, and most of all, a shit ton of illegal violence. Road Rash. There were many racing games before Road Rash, but this one made a league of its own. The joy provided by beating the crap out of the 15 bikers you could start with, while avoiding the counterattacks and traffic, is something that I haven't been able to find after Road Rash. The best part of the beatdown while racing was weapons like crowbars, bats, and chains that you could collect by throwing a right-timed punch. There are plenty of roadside obstacles also to slow you down, such as signs, trees, animals, and rocks turned into sweet jumps, making it much more interesting and challenging. You can get hit by other bikers and cars as well in traffic, and if you are going at a good speed, then you will fly without your bike from one zip code to another. Crashing is a part of the game, and in my opinion, the most fun part after the wreck is when you run back to recover your bike and you get to explore the neighborhood. Obviously, that is, if you are not into hardcore racing, and in that game just for the fun of it, but that's just me. Another fun aspect of this game is the hands of law. Well, you can't blame them for trying, as the violence sometimes gets really rough and traffic violation is also a fun part of the game. O'Leary and Flynn were good, but I really like to piss off O'Shea. You will definitely have a fight on your hands when you are chased by O'Shea. They want you in jail or dead. So if you lose a fight to a cop, you'll either be fined or busted. The objective of going through all this is to win the race, or to be amongst the first 3 to reach the finishing line and collect purse money. With the purse money, you get to buy better bikes. The pros and cons of each bike are explained in the shop. And while obviously, it's important to buy the overall best bike you can, it's also important to read the description and play to your strengths in the meantime. Unlocking new levels also treated you with the videos of sex and drinking, which I believe was one of the prime contents in the game. As I mentioned earlier, bike racing is just a part, but the mixture of violence, traffic, cops chasing, and fighting you, the rewards for winning a race and leveling up are what made Road Rash a standout in the racing genre. EA released Road Rash in 1991 on the Sega Genesis platform, and turned the badass factor to 11, mostly because it kicks tons of ass. Directed by Carl May and produced by Randy Breen, this game is centered on a series of motorcycle races throughout California. The preliminary development began on the NES title named Mario Andretti Racing. The game's programmers, Dan Geisler and Carl May, were hired by EA with the sole purpose of meeting that desired effect of creating a game with banked road effect. May soon realized that while the NES was capable of road scaling effects, banking would be beyond the console's capability. Though the idea of a racing game originated from the minds of Dan Geisler and Carl May, my appreciation and admiration lean towards Randy Breen for the introduction of bikes into the game while reminiscing about riding his own bike on Mulholland Drive. The title of the game, suggested by Geisler, Road Rash on Mulholland Drive, was derived from the very thought of Breen riding his bike on Mulholland Drive to meet with his friends. Man, if you wiped out here, you get some serious road rash. Geisler, Breen, May, and co-designer Walter Stein used the name to pitch a concept to EA. The title was eventually shortened to Road Rash. In development moved from NES to the recently introduced Sega Genesis, which was powerful enough to generate the desired road effects. The background score by Rob Hubbard gave the game its essence and is one of the best works till now, along with Tony Berkeley and Don Vecca. Road Rash, 1991. The player advances through 5 races in the 5 levels of the game, and the difficulty increases with every level. The number of California settings, including Grassy Valley, the Sierra Nevada, Napa Valley, and the Pacific Coast Highway, are a graphical feature to witness. The best part of this game was that it never took itself seriously. It's evident from the remake of the original with its live-action FMV scenes. The sound effects, visuals, subtle voice lines, and General's 90s-esque gave it a comedy feel, with scenes like another rider running over your rider, or your bike getting shot at with a shotgun by the police. The release of Road Rash and Sega Genesis platform allowed numerous launches through various ports like Amiga, Master System, Game Gear, and Game Boy during 1992 to 1994. Road Rash, 1994. In 1995, EA published the third installment of the Road Rash franchise. In 1994, Road Rash released its 3DO interactive multiplayer. A version for the Sega CD was also developed and released in 1995 to act as a bridge between the 3DO version and the Sega Genesis, which carried the title Road Rash 3. The release of Road Rash 3 was followed by the porting of the game to PlayStation, Sega Saturn, and Microsoft Windows in 1996. EA was influenced by the 5th generation game consoles. They incorporated the famous soundtrack consisting of grunge music, courtesy of A&M Records, including Soundgarden, Monster Magnet, and Screwdriver, with 25 minutes of live-action, full-motion video footage directed by Ron Gross, and digitized character sprites from real-life actors. Randy Breen himself portrayed the game's motor officer, while the motorcycle riders were portrayed by a combination of the game's staff and local AFM racers in the area. The 3DO version of the game was met with critical acclaim and was widely regarded as the pinnacle of the series. The graphics, the grunge soundtrack, and the humorous full-motion video sequences earned the game's highest-selling 3DO title at Babbage's for 3 consecutive months and also topped HMV's 3DO sales chart for 3 consecutive months. The game won several awards from Electronic Game Monthly, including Best Driving Game, Best Music and CD-Based Game, and Best 3DO Game of 1994, despite being criticized for the lack of multiplayer option and the game eventually becoming repetitive. The Sega CD version, as well as the PlayStation, Saturn, and Windows ports, were less well received than the 3DO version, and the critics were largely disappointed by the downgraded visuals. The game was mainly criticized due to the fact that it offered nothing new to the gameplay and very little enhancements were made to the graphics and sound. Though the 3DO version will hurt your pocket, but will give you the best of the Road Rash experience. Nonetheless, its following versions on PlayStation, Saturn, and Windows were nothing but a big disappointment from all aspects of the game for the franchise, as well as for the fans. Road Rash 3D. EA released Road Rash 3D with the help of a producer, Hunter Smith, and programmer Philippe Tobiash and Tim Wilson in 1998. The game received average reviews and was heavily criticized for graphical glitches, reduced the amount of combat, which made the game what it was, and for lack of multiplayer mode. Though Road Rash 3D features some of the best soundtrack designs ever in a video game due to its network of interconnecting roads and impressive 3D engine, it failed to live up to the expectation of its previous versions. Road Rash 64. In the following year, Road Rash 64 was released, and to be honest, it was much more satisfying than Road Rash 3D. Though the principles and activities remains the same, ride and smash your way to victory, in this version you'll need a lot more racing skill and knowledge of the vehicle you are riding. The difference between riding a cruiser and a sports bike, and their own pros and cons, are very subtle and needs to be handled very carefully. Weapon variety is one of the most notable features. You have sledgehammers, pool cues, billy clubs, nunchucks, chains, tire irons, and spike clubs to beat the crap out of your fellow riders. Stunning your opponent or blinding them is a fun part of the game. You get the opportunity to stun your opponent with the use of the electric zapper weapon, or blinding them by using the mace spray before having a go at them. The problem with this version was the graphics. It was not made as vivid as the 3D version, and the game just looks very dated because of the boring textures and bland colors. I would recommend renting the game, as a few hours of multiplayer mode to bash your friends might feel fun. Playing solo, this game will eventually bore you. Road Rash Jailbreak. In 2000, EA Redwood Shores released Road Rash Jailbreak for the PlayStation platform, which was also released on Game Boy Advance platform in 2003. Honestly, Road Rash Jailbreak was a heartbreak for fans like me, who loved the game and was eagerly waiting for a developed and enhanced version of the kick-ass biking racing game. Produced by Hunter Smith, Road Rash Jailbreak felt like it was ripped directly from a cart and plopped onto a CD. The positive thing about the game that one may find is the balance between racing and combat. Jailbreak focused more on racing while keeping the violent beatdown to its limit, which makes the game deliver at least something to look at. The goal behind Jailbreak is to rise through the rank of one of the 2 gangs you pick until you can finally lead the charge to break the king of all bikers, Spaz, out of jail, hence the title Jailbreak. The best part about this game is that it satisfies every guilty craving you've ever had during rush hour, burns off road rage, and takes motorcycle combat to a new level. It doesn't do any of this by looking slick though, or even sounding slick. To be honest, it's not even super slick to play, but it's fun in its own way. If I compare JAILBREAK with the following versions after 3DO, it's far better due to its fair graphics, nice gameplay, some interesting but occasionally flawed multiplayer games, and some unadulterated sadistic fun of the series. Road Redemption. Road Redemption was developed by EQ Games and Pixel Dash Studios as a spiritual successor to the Road Rash series. The game features visibly better graphics and new circuits. The game might feel like playing Mad Max, but in a Road Rash style. Though I won't say the game is as joyous to play as Road Rash, but it has its own little spark to it. While wrenches, pool cues to flip over the rival bike, and shovels are fun, the real fun is when you get a hammer and have a go at the opponent who is trailing you, or when you use a blunt melee weapon to knock off an opponent's helmet before attempting to decapitate them with the sword. Extreme violence has its own charm. You can also acquire various explosives and firearms, although shooting and steering is difficult at times. One of the major drawbacks of the game is the speed adjustments in solo and multiplayer mode. In solo mode, the speed adjustment while riding up to an opponent is smooth and automatically matches the speed with them. In multiplayer mode, that has to be adjusted by you, and you might often find yourself zooming past any racers or additional enemies, leaving little or nothing to do for whoever was at the back of the pack. Meanwhile, the players in the middle of the crew were swamped by an almost comical number of enemies. A few other drawbacks are the lack of content, long-term replayability, and maps. Some of them are the reverse of other maps. It's a good game, but a short-term manic fun. The development team has a lot of balancing and polishing to do if Road Redemption is to become a genuinely satisfying and well-rounded successor to its inspiration. Future of the franchise. The future of the franchise is not yet decided, and we know very little about what to expect. A lot of possibilities were present when the Criterion developers hinted at a return. Multiple attempts were made for a potential Burnout vs. Road Rash, but nothing has come of this. Dan Geisler, the main programmer and co-designer of the Sega Genesis trilogy, was working with a number of the original Road Rash staff members on a new title named Hard Rider, Back in the Saddle. He frequently updated the progress on his Twitter account also, but eventually he was unable to find the funding for it and dropped the idea. Road Redemption is probably the closest of giving a Road Rash feel in a non-Road Rash game, though it didn't really fill the whole Road Rash left, but it's the best we've got for now.